هر کجا دل رو کند آخر بیاید سوی او. قبله دلها کجا باشد به غیر از کوی او.
Hello everyone. I was thinking how I should introduce Jane Lewisohn, who has done a lot for me. How I should talk about her personality and characteristic. To be honest, her personality and characteristic is an encyclopedia of love. She studied in Pahlavi University and she was graduated in 1978. From 1974 to 1978, she taught English in Iran-America Society in Shiraz. In 1978, she was research assistant for U.S. National Endowment for Humanities funded study of schoolgirls in Shiraz. From 1984 to 2003, she was editor of KNP publication, checking English translation against the original Persian and editing, indexing, index preparation of manuscripts for up to 25 published volumes. From 2004 to 2005, she was director of Friends of Afghanistan, an international charity. From 2009 to 2016, she was a research fellow in Institute of Arab and Islamic Studies in the University of Exeter. From 2005 to 2016, she was research associate in Department of Music in the. I think you are still. She's still a research associate in Department of Music in the School of Oriental and Africa Studies, University of London. From 2005 to 2016, or now, she is director of Golha project, an encyclopedic archive of Persian music and literature based on Golha radio program, which she will talk about it. And right now she's director of Golistan Project, and she has numerous publications. For example, the Persian Concert Party in the Middle East in London, and also number of other publications. She received numerous grants, and it is such an honor for us to have her with us for tonight, and she will talk about from Golha to Golistan and her project. Please welcome her for tonight.
Thank you very much, Reza, for that generous introduction, and thank you for arranging this talk, and thanks to the University of Toronto Mississauga for making this room available to us. I assume that many of you, or most of you, know about what the Golha programs were, but some of you may not, and so I'm just going to give you a very brief overview of what the Golha program, radio programs were, and their importance to Persian culture. I can say that, in my opinion, they are one of the most important cultural phenomenons of 20th century Iran. And two of the main reasons: one is because they were completely free to everybody on the radio broadcast, and because of their extreme broad reach musically and also from the point of literature. And these programs were the brainchild of Daoud Pirnia, and he was from an aristocratic family, and his father was the Mushir Dole. He himself was assistant prime minister at one point and worked for the judiciary, and he was the originator of both the Golha programs and also the children's program at the radio. And he, because of his important social status and his own charisma, he was able to attract all of the best writers, musicians, and poets composers to collaborate with him on the Golha programs. And by the time when he reached the radio had reached a kind of a low point, and many of the great musicians of the day had left the radio and were no longer collaborating with the radio. But when he came, because of his vision and his vision for the Golha, and because of his social status, he was able to attract most of them back to the radio. And he produced the Golha programs from 1956 to 1967, then he retired from the radio, and they were managed by a collective group of people till 1972, when Houshang Ebtihaj took over the music at the radio, and he started the Golha Taze. Mr. Pirnia had made several different types of programs of Golha. The first was the Golha Javidan, which was a very serious program, singling out certain authors or certain topics with usually a commentary by a literary critic, and then the classical Persian singing and musical accompaniment. And then they decided to make another program which was a little bit more light and included also the popular ballads or taronays and poetry from more contemporary authors. And then another one, the Bargasabs, was one that concentrated specifically on Sufi literature and Sufi poetry, and again it was avaz and musical accompaniment. And then Yeshaq Gol was a very short program, and that was just about one poet or one specific thing, and about 15 minutes long. And then the Golha Sarai were he started the Golha Sarai specifically for Sima Bina. Sima Bina had been singing in the children's program since she was like 8 or 10 years old, and then when she got to be about 18, she went to Mr. Pirnia and said, "Well, I'm too old for the children's program, and I'm going to stop coming to sing at the radio." And he said, "No, don't do that. We'll make a program just for you." And so he made the Golha Sarai for her, and it's mostly the regional music which they orchestrated for the radio and were sung by people like Sima Bina and a lot of other musicians and singers that specialize in regional music. And then in 1972, Houshang Ebtihaj became head of the music at the radio, and he collapsed all of the programs into the Golha Taze. And the Golha Taze, he also gave a lot of opportunities to new and younger musicians like Lotfi and other and Shajarian and people who were just coming into the musical scene. And he supported what is called the Bargash, or the return movement, that Lotfi and Ali Zadeh and all of these people were instrumental about, which was going back to the roots of Persian music before musical notation in the Qajar era. And he really promoted that within the Golha Taze. So that's basically a description of what the Golha project, what the Golha were about. And then this is a timeline of the actual project. It began with a grant from the British Library to collect all of the recordings, and then a copy of that was placed in the British Library World Sound Archive. And then I began working on, was in about 2007, and then I began working on the Golha website, which is a very detailed, granular search of all of the programs, which I'll give you a bit of a look about it. And all of the audio is available free for everybody online, and all of the notes for all the taronays, biographies of the poets, 700 poets from the Samanid to the Pahlavi period, about 250 performers, their biographies, and the texts of all of the programs are all available there. We have about 4 million visitors, up until recently about 60,000 registered users, and it is used in many of the universities in Western Europe and North America as a pedagogical tool for both Persian music and Persian literature. And these are a list of some of the institutions, both inside and outside of Iran, that collaborated with me on the Golha project. Both the institutions, both inside and outside Iran, were very forthcoming, and I had a lot of co-op, plus a huge amount of private collectors who, the bulk of the recordings that I collected from private recordings, but I did have the cooperation of the radio and the other institutions in Iran. And I'm just going to give you a brief overview of the vast amount of literary content. You have to realize that at the time the Golha were broadcast, the illiteracy rate in Iran was about 85%. And so it is presenting free over the airwaves to everybody their literary history and making them aware. I mean, all Iranians love poetry, but if you go to a village and I don't know, somewhere in Loristan, they may be able to tell you the names of 4 or 5 poets. But here you have 700 poets from the Samanid to the Pahlavi period recited. Their names are told to you, and many of them, their history is also told. So these are the poets from the Samanid period, and then these are the poets from the Seljuk period. Of course, just selection because I couldn't put all their names on the slides, but you can get an idea. These are the major poets from these various periods. You can get an idea of the breadth of the literary content. And then these are the poets from the Mughal period. And these are the poets from the Timurid, Safavid, Turkoman, and Safavid period. And the poets and poetess. And then here we have from the Afshar-Zand and Qajar periods, where you have a lot more. And that's one thing that Mr. Piernier really did emphasize, was he included a huge amount of female poets. And in the Yeshal Gol program, which is about 465, I think, programs, 67 of those programs are devoted to specific profiles of female poets, which at the time is saying a lot, because poetry and literary expression was a male-dominated field at that time. And then this is the poets of the Pahlavi period. And then we have here, this is a list of the various singers and musicians. Of course, there's a lot of cross-referencing here because a lot of the composers were also musicians, etc. But you can get them, all of the major names of 20th century performing arts. All the greats were participating in this project. And now I'm just going to give you a short look at the actual site and show you how you can access it and the different type of searches that you can do and the information that's available there. We have the basic search, which is basically you just choose any name of any one of the programs. I'm doing the whole site is in Persian and English, so you can just click here and it'll turn to Persian. You click here and it'll turn to English, but because the Persian keyboard is a little bit difficult to access, I'm going to do it in English. And then, so you click the name of the program, any program you want, and then the number, and that program will come up, and you can listen to it from the beginning to end by clicking here. Or if you're interested in one particular section of the program, you click it and that section or the person's name, and that will light up, so it's easy for you to find. So you have this jump to effect. If you're looking for a particular song or a particular solo, you click on the name of that person. It goes right to, you don't have to go to the beginning and back and forth till you find what you're looking for. It goes right to the point that you're looking for. So that is the basic search. And then we have individual search. And this is a very kind of granular search. And you can search by any of these rubrics: name of the program, name of the singer of Oz, name of the singer of Taraneh, name of the song, composer of the song, lyricist of the Taraneh, poet of the song sung in Oz, the poet of the song declaimed, first Mahlah Ghazal, the first line of the Taraneh, poetic genre, musicians, instrument, modal system, دستگاه آواز, گوشه, tanzim arranger, tanzim kunande, announcer, commentator, or sound technician. So you can search by all those things. And here I'm just going to do a search here of the first name of the song, first word in the song. And I'm going to type Ahmad here. And I'm looking for a song that begins, the first word of it begins with Ahmad. And hopefully technology will be with us. Let's see. So all the songs that begin with Ahmad come up, and you choose the one that you're looking for. And here, Ahmadi John, we have here, and wherever that song is in the index or in the archive, it will come up. Oh, why didn't it come up? Hang on. Okay, let's try that again. Okay. Okay, so wherever that song is in the program, it will come, whatever programs that song contains will come up, and you click on it, and then you can, again, you click on the singer, and here you have it here, the Hala Chera. Let me start it from the beginning. And we have the transcripts all written here, so you can follow along the song. You can read along, and this is really good for people who are, students who want to improve their reading and their pronunciation, everything like that, particularly heritage students. And then we have also the musical notes, and these notes are actually Haliqi's original handwriting. Golnush Haliqi very kindly gave me all of her father's archive and let me upload it to the site so that anybody could access it. And then we have also all of the biographies of everybody in Persian and English. It can be accessed like that. And then you can also make your own playlist, and you can email your playlist to your friends if you want, or you can listen to your playlist on the radio player, which will stay on your desktop. Okay, well that's an error doing that, but in any case, it'll stay on your desktop, and then you can play all of your songs on the radio player that way. So that's the individual search, and then we have an advanced search where you can combine a lot of these different types of searches into one more detailed search. So here we're going to search for a Taraneh or an avaz sung by Shahjanian, and we'll select the poetic genre of a ghazal. Okay. And we'll, why didn't it? Okay. Okay, and then we'll select the gushe of Bidan. Okay. And And so we've selected those 3 aspects, and we click on the search engine, and hopefully technology will be kind to us. And wherever Shajarian has sung Bidad in the archive will come up, and you can click on it, and it will begin playing at the beginning of the Gushe Bidad. So this is really helpful if you're let's say you're studying Avaz and you want to compare the Bidad of Golpa with the Bidad of Shajarian, with the Bidad of Adib, you can do it within a click. Or you're studying the tar and you want to compare the Chakavak of Shahnaz with Lotfi, with Majd, you can do it in a click. I mean, even if you had your own archive as big as this room, you would take you a week to find those things. So this is basically making it easy for people, making it accessible. We haven't invented anything, we're just making what is there accessible to everybody. And so this, and as I was doing this, as I was working on the Golha, and as people became aware of what I was doing, they began to send me their archives from all over the world. And I mean, I'm talking thousands of reel-to-reel tapes, I mean, hundreds of terabytes of digitalized material. And and also I began to realize that there are so many archives that are endangered, that they're in people's attics, in people's closets, and they're rotting away. And, you know, in Iran and also in the West, it's very interesting, whereas certain aspects of Iran's cultural heritage are considered worthy of collecting and preserving, and others are just off the page, and nobody really thinks about them. You know, if you're thinking about archaeological sites, archaeological artifacts, Persian miniatures, I don't know, historical documents, architecture, these are all deemed worthy of being saved. But when it comes to performing arts, they're often very forgotten or completely off the page. And this is not just in Iran, also outside of Iran we have the same problem. And so this is really something that needs to be done. This is the cultural heritage of a nation, of a people, and it will all be lost if we don't do something about it. Now we all complain about, you know, all the libraries of Sisyphon and, I don't know, Baghdad and Alamut and Nishapur, they were destroyed and so much of our Iranian cultural heritage is lost forever. But we now have the ability and the technology to save this stuff for posterity. And if we don't do something, the next generation is going to look back at us and say, where were you? What page were you on? Why didn't you do something? We have lost all of the cultural heritage of performing arts of 20th century Iran, and it will be our fault. So we have to do something about it. And so that's what I've decided to do. And hopefully with everybody, all the other Iranians around help, we'll be able to do it. And it makes it extremely important because I'll just tell you something that just happened just before I got on this trip. I was at the British Library discussing this problem with them, and they said that they had just done a huge research about their own archive, the World Sound Archive that they have, to see how much time they had to save their sound archive before it deteriorated beyond repair. Now, their archive, of course, is in the best condition, it's in the best humidity, the best temperature, everything, perfect. And their result was they have 15 years to digitalize their archive before it begins to deteriorate beyond repair. So, these archives that I am receiving from people's attics, from people's cellars, from people's closets, they are even more endangered. So we really have to step up to the mark and do something. But in any case, I'm going to show you a little bit about how I am thinking about doing this project and show you what we have done so far. Now, and these are some of the archives that have been donated already to the Golha. To the Golistan site. Let me just put this in slideshow view so you can see it. I think. So here there's, you know, hundreds of thousands of hours of radio broadcasts besides just the Golha. Really important programs that were produced in the 1960s and 70s and 50s, 60s, and 70s in Iran. And this is a list of some of them. We have about 490 hours of Golha or wax cylinder recordings that we need to have digitalized, about 3,078 Safi Sangi or 78 RPM recordings, 45 RPM recordings, hours and hours of field recordings that were done by musicologists while they were studying in Iran. About 150 hours of interviews that were done in the 50s and 60s of people who are now long gone, no longer with us. And we have lots of private archives that have been given to the archive. One is the private archive of a Japanese musicologist, who has a really interesting story, which I will tell you if we have time. And then we have another man, Mr. Adab, who lived in Shiraz, and he was his point was to record all the Persian music, and he has about 1,000 reel-to-reel recordings, which were given to me. And he was a Baha'i, and among them are a lot of Baha'i monajat from the Shiraz period. And then another archive of Khan Baba Khan Nouri, who was a prominent physician in Tehran and used to have soirees at his house all the time of all the great musicians of the 20th century. And then Ehsan Yashadar has also given me his private recordings, reel-to-reel and cassette recordings, which we recently just got, where some of these, the Japanese recordings are all digitalized, and the rest of them we're beginning to try to. We have someone who has volunteered to do this, and they are doing it. And then we have a huge amount of videos. We have over 1,000 hours of video recordings of music programs from national TV, and these are the names of some of them. And then thousands of hours of serials. The TV serials that were broadcast in Iran in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, or 60s and 70s, because TV was only in the 60s. And then about 325 hours of videos of music festivals like the Shiraz Festival and the Tus Festival and other festivals, and about 2,000 Persian feature films. These will all be included. Basically, it's going to be a world resource for Persian performing arts of the 20th century. And then we have all the printed matter. These are names of some of the journals which will be scanned and made accessible to people over the internet, so anybody can access these things. And it's my aim that all of this has to be freely accessible with no subscription. Because if we have a subscription, people in Iran, Afghanistan, Tajikistan will not be able to access it, and that is not right. Or if we lock it up in a university, only the people who are signed up to that university can access it. Or you'd have to travel from God knows where to get to the university to access it, or to the British Library, or to the National, or to the Library of Congress, or somewhere like that. So now I'm just going to show you a little bit about how this website is going to work. We have a demo that we have put together here of the website. And again, this is all going to be bilingual, Persian and English. It's a little bit slow, so you'll have to, but you see the whole thing, whatever is there is either in Persian or English, but because, as I say, Persian keyboard is a bit difficult to access, so I'm just going to, and you have to remember, this is a demo site, so we only have about maybe 60 or 70 samples on there. So, for instance, here, if we type here, any name here, whatever is in the archive that relates to that person's name, or maybe it's an instrument, or maybe it's the name of a journal, whatever it is, it will come up in a list, and then you can click on it. But of course, Marzia's name, there would be thousands of things, but right now we just have a few samples. So you can see that's one way you can search the archive. And then we've broken it down into 3 separate sections: watch, listen, and read. And in watch, we have the feature films produced in Iran from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. This is an early version of Layli and Majnun, and you'll be able to watch the whole thing, and you can all the film will be accessible for you to watch, and there'll be a synopsis here, and then all the information relating to the film about who composed the songs, who was the lyricist, who sung them, and all the people related to it, and all these names will be clickable. So you can click on Yosemite, and whatever film he made will come, and you can look at it. So we're going to have all of those with all of the research behind it, who made it, who wrote it, who directed it, who starred in it, and then we have the TV programs. So again, this is just a sample. And when the site is up and running, of course, all of these will be clickable. They're not clickable right now because it's just a demo. But you can click. You'll be able to click on any one of these. A list of the directors will come up, and then you can go on to find whatever film they made. So all of these various TV. This is just a sample, but all these various TV shows that are memorable to a lot of people who were in Iran in the 50s and 60s and 70s. Will be there, and you'll be able to watch all of the different episodes. And there'll be a synopsis, and then all of the information related to the film will be there for anybody who would like to access that information. And then we are going to have videos. And these videos are sort of like one-off things that happen, like the videos from the Shiraz Festival. This is one of Marzieh with Hananeh's orchestra at Rudaki Hall. This is Marzieh and Lotfi at again, Rudaki Hall, singing, Marzieh singing Maulana's poetry. And this is from the Isfahan TV station, Taj and Hassan Kasai. Gugush singing for the President of Mexico, the Tus Ars Festival, Sattar singing for Saddam Hussein's birthday in Iraq, and then a private recording of Haideh and her sister Mahasti. So all of these will be accessible, and you'll be able to watch them, and all of their information will be there. And let's see, let's click this one here. That's Lotfi there. And then we will have radio programs. Radio programs other than the ones than the Golha. And so this is a sample of some of the radio programs that we have. So this is Saz Solo, Takna Bazan, Golchina Hafte. And then this is one that some of you may remember, maybe not. It's called Sha'arin Qasimi Goyan. And it's all of the major masnavis of Iranian literature, from Bisr Amin, Mantiq al-Tair, Ferdowsi, Dastanhay Masnavi, as Jami, as Nizami, all the major masnavis of Iran produced as radio plays. And the masnavi is kind of a difficult genre to get into if you haven't gone to high school in Iran, because it's difficult to tell when God is speaking, when Pir Changi is speaking, when Maulana is speaking. But when you have it as a radio play and the voice is changing all the time, it makes it much more accessible, particularly for heritage students who did not go to high school in Iran. And we have typed all of the Persian of these, and we have good English translations of most of them. So we can have it bilingual, and that will be a fantastic thing. And then we have here the Saz Sukhan, which is Khaliqi, going through all the various dastgahs and gouches. And then we have, again, his biographies, his programs we did on the biographies of the musicians. These are and more biographies of the musicians done by Alaya Khoshnam in Germany. And then we have this program where they would go to people's houses the artist's house, and they would interview them in their house about their life and how they came into being a performer and everything like that. And this is just a sample. We have a lot more programs, radio programs that will also be accessible. And then we have music in general. Music in general, these are a few of the categories that we put together. And these are the shellac recordings. And we have about 3,000 shellac recordings, or 78s, or safisangi. And you'll have the labels scanned and a description of everything there and all the information. And you'll be able to listen to them. This is Qamar singing a poem by Amir Jahed and accompanied by Amir Arsalan. And all of these will be available for you to listen to and for researchers to take advantage of the information. And then we will have here, we've got the 45s, we've got regional recordings, and then we're going to have those recordings of the musicologists. Their field recordings will be there too. And then we have private recordings. And in my opinion, the private recordings are some of the most valuable ones, because in these recordings, the musicians were playing for their contemporaries. They were playing for each other. They weren't playing for the radio. They weren't playing to make a record or a tape or anything like that. They were just playing for the love of music and for their friends. This is one of Hosseini Yahaki, who has an instrumental place in Persian music, because he started with the kamanche, and he was one of the first people to adopt the violin. But his method of playing the violin, he puts all of the elements of the kamanche into playing his violin. So he's a really pivotal person in Persian music. And almost all of the almost all of the recordings that we have of Hossein are from the safisangi, which have this very grainy, the technology was not great, it was very low technology. So, but this, so you can see the quality is like miles away from the safisangi. And we have lots and lots of these private recordings in these archives of the reel-to-reel recordings that people have given me. And these will all be accessible. And from a musicology point of view, they're invaluable. And again, these are in people's attics, in people's basements, in people's closets. They need to be saved as a matter of urgency. And then we have interviews, lots of interviews. I've done about maybe 30 or 40 interviews myself, which I will put them up there. But a lot of these interviews were done by Mr. Khosrow Behrouzi. And he was working at the radio in the 60s, and his job was doing interviews. And so this is one where Banon is talking about how the recording of De Leman came about.
آواز دیگران رو در 1321 که من از دوستان آمدم در یک جای وقت بودم، در یکی از دوستان که فوت کرد، مرحوم نوری، خانم نوری و منظورشون بودم، آقای صاحب آمدن اونجا دیدن ایشون، گفتن که راستی من در دیلمان یه از قاسم‌آباد بهش میگن، ما بین رشت ما دارم آهنگ ساختن، اینجوری صدایی میخوام که فرموله داشته باشه، سریع ریز داشته باشه، این که آبشار در آبشار خواننده میخونه صداش دور میشه، صداش دور میکنه، نزدیک میکنه، اونجا میخوام. من دکتر شوقی بودم بده نوتو بودم داده بودم بزن در خوندن باید همین.
So, we have a lot of these recordings. All these people are now no longer with us, and so this is the oral history of the performing arts of Iran, which will be accessible for everybody. And then we have, in the read section, we're going to have all of the major journals related to performance arts of Iran. They will all be scanned and accessible. And let's see. And you can you'll be able to read them all. And we're working with some of the people at Google who are working on Persian OCR. And if we eventually you'll be able to search them by keyword. Not ready yet, but hopefully by the time we get a major amount of these up and running, we will be able to have keyword search on them. And then we have also pamphlets. And these are various kinds of pamphlets that were produced in the mid 20th century. Catalogs from festivals and things like that. And then some of you may know or may have seen or remember or heard about a character called the Tasnif Frush. And he would sit on the corner and sing the new Tasnif. This was time before the radio. And if you liked the Tasnif, then you would buy his pamphlet. And so this is one of those kinds of pamphlets that would have been sold by the Tasnif Frush. And let's see if we can get the rest. And so this is the Tasnif al-Zalak. And then we also have the 78 recording of this Tasnif al-Zalak to go along with it. And then we have here also, this is the next one on this list, which is a comedy. Now, Sabah, he did a lot of serious stuff, but he also did a lot of comedies with Jome Barbot. And there's a lot of 78 recordings of Sabah's comedies. And so this one is called Ashresh Se, and it's about a mother who finds a wife for the son, and he says, well, why didn't you put your glasses on when you picked her? And she says, but she makes really great Ashresh Se. And so this is a comedy, and we have the 78 for this one too. So this is really the cultural history of Iran, and it needs to be saved. It really, really needs to be saved, and it really, really needs to be made accessible. Okay, not just saved and locked up in some museum somewhere. And then we're going to try to get all of the feature films of the 20th century, but those ones that we can't, we'll have the posters and we'll have their information. Now we have a few other ways that you'll be able to search this site. You can click on alphabetically, and anybody that begins with G will come up, and there'll be everything will have its own profile, so you'll have a short biography, and then you'll have a longer one. And whatever audio relates to that person will be there, and you can look at it. Whatever video, and whatever articles from journals that were written during their lifetime will also be there, and you'll be able to read them. And then we have here another way to search, which will be everybody and everything will have its own profile, so you can just click on that profile and click on their picture, and then you can have all the information about that person. And so this is Badi Zadeh, and so we have audio, and then we have video, and articles that were written about him. And then we'll also have a news section where we will write articles about, the performing arts of 20th century Iran. They only have a few, only have really one that's up and running right now. Some of them I write myself. I'll get my friends to write them who are involved in history of performing arts. And this is one, oh, thank you. This is one about the musicians who went in 1909 to London to record for his master's voice. We'll also have a section where we can give news of lectures, conferences, concerts to do with Persian performing arts, and people can put their notices up here. And so basically this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to make all of performing arts of 20th century Iran, not just preserve it and lock it up in some archive somewhere, but to make it accessible in a free and easy way for everybody, so that the performing arts of 20th century Iran will not be lost for future generations. So thanks so much for listening, and appreciate all of you guys coming here on Saturday afternoon. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Well, I think that eventually we'll probably put them together, but from that won't be until the Golistan really gets up and running right now. I mean, we just have this demo right now, and we need to do fundraising in order to get the funds to do the programming. I mean, it's massively complicated because we have all of those granular searches, and then we have 3 different types of media. We've got audio, video, and printed matter. So it's a very complicated platform, and so it's going to take a while to get it up and running, but we hope it won't take that long. A lot of the material is already ready and digitalized, ready to go, as soon as we can get the platform up and running.
So. But when it's demo, so we can access that, right?
Yes, the demo is you can just go to golistan.org and the demo is there. But a very limited amount of material on there, and we're hoping if we can raise the funds to get the platform. Once we get the platform, the computer people have told me that once they get the platform up, it will be only a month before we can begin uploading things. So it would only take a few months to begin having really a significant amount of content accessible. But it's we have to build the building first before we can be putting the chairs and the carpets and everything in it.
That fundraising is already announced somewhere.
Well, I've been doing it on announcing it on Facebook and social media, and I go around to various places and give talks to make people aware of it, and on various TV, on BBC and VOA, and on various places. And also, of course, I'm looking for grants, but it's kind of really difficult because, the people that give grants, like National Endowment for the Humanities or the British Academy and things like that, they're extremely, Western Europe and North America centric. And so, we get to the bottom of the list when it comes to Iranian performing arts. So we really need to look out for, funding from the Iranian community and from Iranian foundations that would be more interested in preserving their own culture than these other ones that are fairly politicized and wouldn't really be interested in anything Iranian, really.
Besides the private people back home that they're sending you their stuff, do you have any contact from the authorities from inside? I mean, government?
No. I mean, I haven't really reached out to them in that aspect. Although, I'm on friendly terms with, the Museum of Music and the House of Music and things like that. But I haven't reached out to them. I mean, I already have my hands full with what I've got. And as far as the Museum of Music is concerned, I have a lot of things that they don't have. So, I haven't reached out to them yet.
What would you get on them to get involved?
Get involved. Here we have get involved. So we have these ways that you can become, and on the regular site there'll be a questionnaire here. So if you want to volunteer, I don't know if you want to volunteer for translating or research or if you're an accountant or you're a lawyer or you're somebody who knows about digitalizing things or things like that, or a programmer, you can tick that off and volunteer that way. And then we have the donate thing there, and then you can sign up for the newsletter. You'll be kept informed as to what we have. And then we have, this is our about, and so to give you, just a short description of everything. And then we have our directors here, and then we have our advisors, and many of these will be familiar people to you, Mr. Amir Dadamanat, Toraj Daryai. And we're going to make the institutional partner of the site will be, of the project will be UC Irvine. They have the only chair of Persian music outside of Iran there, Hossein Omimi. All the other places that people can learn Persian music, it's in the world music faculty or in the Middle Eastern music faculty, but they're the only chair of Persian music outside of Iran. So that's an appropriate place for us to have our institutional base. And they have that big Jordan Center there, and they've offered us a room at that center. And Dr. Shahabi from BU, Hoshnam from Germany, Parviz Jahed, Sashar, who specializes in Jewish Iranian music, Farzad Mobim, he's a sort of tech genius guy in the Silicon Valley. Ali Umumi, another tech person here, and then a business person, and Mariam Seyhoun, who's in the field of the arts and galleries. So that's that, and then we have our contact page here, which is, here you can contact us here any way you like. So,
Are you focusing mostly on like Farsi or the
Persian, you mean?
No, just only like the Farsi language.
Persian, you mean Persian?
Yeah. So like we have like different nations, like right? I don't know, like Loris or Kurds, you know, like all.
Well, it's all anything from the Persianate world, so anything that would come within the great Iran or even greater Iran. So we have a lot of music from Loristan and Khorasan and Bandar Abbas and Sistan and Zahedan and all of these different places. So it's not just Tehrani music. It's music from all the different ethnicities in Iran, and we have some Afghan music and Azerbaijan music.
You pointed something to Ferdowsi.
Yeah.
Do you have anything related to Shahnameh there on the website?
Well, we have in the Sha'aran Qasimi Goyan, we have some of the radio plays about stories from the Shahnameh. And also here I was going to tell you the story about the Japanese musicologist. The Japanese musicologist, his name is Tsunge Ginich. And he heard me speaking about the Golha somewhere in London, and he came up to me afterwards and he said, this is like memory lane for me. I knew all those people, Sabah, Pirnia, and all these people, and I want to talk to you privately. So I said, okay. And we met, and he said, I was in Iran in the 60s, and I was doing my research for my PhD, and I knew all those people. They were my friends, and they gave me a lot of recordings. And I said to him, well, how did you find out about, Iran in the 1960s music? I mean, it's not like now where everything's on the internet. And he said, well, there was a conference in Iran in 1961 to do with it was a UNESCO-sponsored concert, and it was hosted at University of Tehran, and it was, the subject matter was traditional and modern music. And they invited people from all over the world, and they talked about the different problems between traditional and modern music. His professor went to Iran for that conference on behalf of Japan and brought him back a sample of Persian music. And he fell in love with this music and decided to do his PhD on that music. And he went to the foreign ministry in Japan and asked for a scholarship to go to Iran to do this. And they said, no, we don't have any money, we're not giving you any money. And so then he wrote a letter to the Shah. And I said, well, how did you get the Shah's address? And he said, I just wrote on the packet, Shah of Iran, Tehran, Iran. And, and the letter got to the Shah, and the Shah opened the letter and called in the head of the university and said, I want to give this guy a scholarship, a stipend, the whole works to come here and study music. And so the head of the university said, oh, sure, fine. And so he left, but he didn't have the nerve to tell the Shah that at that point in time, they didn't have a music department at the Tehran University. All there was the Honaristan. And so the music department at Tehran University was made for him. He came, and the first year he studied language and literature, and then by the second year they had the department up and running, and his classmates were Farhat and Sapanta and all the great Iranian musicologists that we all know about now. And so he said, I have all these recordings from my own field recordings when I was there, and all these recordings that these great artists gave me while I was there, and nobody in Japan could care less about these things. And so would you take them on. And I said, oh, I would love to do that, of course. And so I said, but could you send me a list? Because in my mind, I was thinking, oh, well, I'm going to have to apply for a grant from somewhere to go to Japan to get these things. And so a couple of years passed, and emails back and forth. He never sent me the list. And I asked my other friends, and they all said, well, he's pretty old, and he's also noted for being very lazy. So I realized I was never going to get the list. And so I applied to the British Institute of Persian Studies, and because I have a kind of a relatively good track record, they gave me the grant to go to Japan. And I collected his archive, and now it's all been digitalized by this volunteer that we have in Siavash. What's Siavash's last name? I can't remember his last name. Okay, so he's digitalized the whole thing. And I have a few samples from that archive here that I can show you. This is the book that was published from that conference. And at that conference, there were 32 speakers from all over the world, and Ali Naqi Bazidi spoke in French at that conference, and on the means of notation as a means for preserving traditional music. And then this was Tsungi's professor, Fukubo Kozimi, and so that was the book that was published. And then I have a few samples which I'll show. This is, Nurali Buruman, a very instrumental and very influential teacher of Persian traditional music, but he was pretty picky and he didn't let people record him very much. We have his radif, but the quality of the recordings is not the greatest. But here, this is a recording of him playing the Char Mezrab in Mahor, and you can just listen to the quality of the recording. It's fantastic. And this is another recording that is of Parisa at age 15, when she was just beginning to learn singing. And in Parisa. What? Parisa, and she's accompanied by Hossein Malek. And then we have also here just a few samples from the. And these are some really rare recordings of a Zoroastrian funeral ceremony. And most of the recordings that we have of people reciting the Avesta are from the Parsis in India. And this is recordings that were done in Zahedan or in Kerman at a funeral ceremony in 1965. And there are two different Artash Kedes, Artash Dars here, but the description that he gave was in Japanese, and so I wasn't able to actually catch both names. One of the names, it was quite easy. It was Rashid Rostami, but the first one I didn't catch the name exactly. So this is one of them. I don't know if we have anybody in the room who knows Avestan, but in any case, I have checked with specialists, and that is definitely the Avesta. And this is the other, two different people, but it's hard to tell unless you... But it's completely different from the way the Parsi recitations, the Indian Parsi recitations of the Avesta. It's a completely different sound. And I mean, he went around and he recorded the minstrels on the street, the songs of the vegetable sellers, the Qavakhune, Naqal, the Zurkhune. Everywhere he went, all over the country, from Loristan to Gilan to Khorasan to Bandar Abbas to Zahedan. He went all over the place, and we have all these recordings now digitalized. This is on the same tape. It's a recording of a palm reader in front of the bazaar in Kerman. This is social history here, and now we have, this is one where we have Hossein Tehrani. I mean, many of you may know that he used to sing sometimes, and he had a fairly decent singing voice. And so this is an example of Hossein Tehrani singing, accompanied by Sabah on the sitar. Yeah. So this is just a sample of some of the things that were in the Japanese archive, and we're just beginning to go through the other archives that have been given to us, and but these are really historical documents that need to be preserved. They may not be on paper or on stone, but they're on magnetic tape, they're on celluloid, they're printed on newsprint, and they're very perishable and zaval pazir, and we have to do something about them. So thank you very much for your attention and your listening. And there's some information here on the table, some flyers and information. If you want, you can take them with you, if you like. Yeah, please.
As I understood that you provide everything from my back home Iran, but just I want to know you can understand all the accents and languages in Iran.
من بالاخره یه خود فارسی بلدم.
اوکی خیلی خوب بلدید.
چیز هر لهجه‌ای که بلد نیستم از متخصصین اون لهجه رو رجوع میکنم و کمک از اونا میگیرم. اما خب مقداری زیادیش میفهمم.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all for coming and thank you all for listening.
همیشه شاد و همیشه خوش باشید.